Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Thank you for your patience in waiting 15 minutes, especially to these guys, because Sunuki's been here waiting, and Manuel rushed back without having any of his lunch, so his poor thing is probably starving. But we wanted to really start back fresh and really have this amazing afternoon, because the speakers in the afternoon are really wonderful. Like, honestly, I almost wish I wasn't standing up here and I could just sit down and enjoy, because I love these guys, like totally love these guys. So it's really exciting to be able to, I'm excited for you to be able to experience this. So that being said, let's start. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker. And Manuel, would you like to stand up and forget? This is Manuel de Hagopian. Now, I'm going to read off this just because it's such a long list and I don't want to miss anything, and then I'll be in trouble twice, once for starting late and then twice for forgetting any details. So Manuel graduated from architecture, and the university is from Geneva, and it was graduated from the Geneva Institute of Architects in Switzerland, and then the Bellevue School of Architecture in Paris. Okay, now this is like, he's like the coolest guy, but it's like, and then he is one of the original partners of Group 8 Architects. Amazing achievement, right? Keep going with the accolades. All right, so established in Geneva in 2000, and is co-founder and partner at G8A, in charge of operations at the Singapore and Ho Chi Minh offices, and he's also co-manages the offices in Geneva and Hanoi. You've been based in Vietnam for 18 years, is that correct? 18 years, that's pretty amazing. So that's just phenomenal. Okay. Main responsibilities include design leadership and direction across the company for projects from their conceptual onset to completed construction, in collaboration with international and local institutions. Manuel co-creates exhibitions at Event Hub, TB80 space in Singapore, while simultaneously contributing to research education throughout architectural studios and juries for diversity of international architectural schools and cultural institutions. Very long sentence, very, very accolades. Okay, G8A's think tank, aptly named 8+. He also pursues his strong interest, and then, next page. Very long intro, but you deserve it. You deserve it, okay. Totally deserve it. Okay, consequences of a rapidly growing population impact on the residential housing situation in Southeast Asia, and modernism architecture for its economical and social impacts in architectural practice. So this is the second time I've introduced Manuel. The first time I introduced him to our students, who I must say that I think I've spent hours and hours trying to motivate them and get them engaged and get them enthralled, and then and then Manuel comes in, and then all of a sudden it's all about him. So and the projects that they do. So it's very exciting for me to welcome him to be here today and to present to you guys, because he's just great. He's just so inspiring, great. So over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Now it's makes the things even more difficult. Okay. And this. Okay, not bad. So today, just few slides to just introduce a little bit what we are doing here with a different studio. 3 studios in Southeast Asia, so Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, and Singapore. We are Swiss originally, the office, and we of course, working through these different lengths from Switzerland, Singapore, and Hanoi. So you can imagine the gap between Vietnam and Switzerland is quite big. But actually, along the years, we've been able to create some kind of cohesion between these two words that you can see in here or even here, which are somehow similar but very different at the end of the day. And the error on the macaron, of course. The macaron is a very good slide because it's about maybe tradition or heritage, French heritage, and maybe Korean heritage or whatever, Yellow Kitty, I don't even know where which come from. We will see that the macaron, la durée, which is on the left, will be the very traditional macaron, the very good one, actually. Yeah? But actually, you are in Seoul. I think everybody will pick that one, or maybe even in Ho Chi Minh. So you can feel that the reality is very different, depend where you are actually. Yeah, this one become very tricky. So, my file is dead. If someone can, the file is dead. I think you need to bring back the old one, maybe. Sorry. This one is a good slide also, even half. Actually, you are in Tokyo and you're talking about a tower by steel. And if you do it in Paris, there will be two answers. Of course, the Tokyo Tower, of course. But you are in Paris, there is no question, it's the Eiffel Tower. So the same description, but actually two answers. And this is what we have tried to work along the year between Switzerland. Yeah, and you stop here. It's all right. You stay with me? No? No. Oh, okay. Okay, so go. No, it's okay. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. This one is not what. All right, here we go. So these two realities, what we have tested out and experienced along the years. Here, the towers. Okay, today I will do an intent. So, I will. Yes, okay. Very constraining. Okay, now so today I will do an intent about some kind of heritage that we are not looking at directly. Is potentially the heritage of the village typology, or the heritage of organisms that have been for so long here and so long in Vietnam, but everywhere, which is the village. And actually, how this village can potentially be a form of the past, but maybe can be also a form of future. And most of our clients actually from Switzerland, from Vietnam, or even from elsewhere, we're always talking about the village as a form of living together with a lot of qualities. And actually, that's something that intrigued me. And we have somehow worked during 25 years having the village in mind. And actually, I select 3 of the potential village that we have done. 2 in Vietnam, 1 in China, Shenzhen, not built yet. Fully one day, the IT village, the manufacturing village, and the sky village. So the first one is Concrete Lace, if you go to our website, which is basically a FPT software village. And of course, it was North Vietnam, and it was the first commission that we got in 2006, 2007. When we started, and we got the master plan of the IT area in Walak, one of the satellites of Hanoi. And of course, the village became very strong because all around Hanoi, of course, the craft village typology and form of living is super strong. And actually, we thought about, is that potentially, instead of doing an IT office or whatever campus, can we do an IT village, basically? And that was our idea. And if you go through the history, actually, in 1930, there was almost 700 to 800 villages around Hanoi. And today, very strangely, there is more, actually. You thought that everybody go to the city, and so the village is dying, but actually it's not true. By the urbanization of Hanoi and also all the manufacturing and all the different satellites, actually the villages become more sophisticated. There was always a main village, but there is sub-village, and that just creates some kind of compound of villages or agglomerate of villages. And actually villages is still alive in Vietnam and in North Vietnam. And we got this commission in talking about this IT high-tech park in Hanoi next to Hoa Binh, like 45 minutes from Hanoi. And this is what we got. And actually, we got this part in the center here. Beautiful. It's very, very strange to have this kind of urban typology, urban visualization to some kind of very countryside, actually. And this is more or less Walak back at that time. And then we start to work on that portion, which is very very unique because it's close to a water body. And actually, we decided to do 8 villages. The 8 is a very good number, you can imagine, but it's not. It's about size, actually, size. And this is one of the questions, or one of the quality of the village, is the size, the proportion, the fact that you don't have to take a lift when you are in a village. You can work and you don't cross a car when you are in village. You are in village, there is cross ventilation, but there is also shade. This is the quality of a village that I can recall when I was back at that time in Hanoi. And we start to envision a building that is only 4 floors. It's for FPT software. There are very young people working there. And all the circulation and the ventilation is natural on all public spaces. We try to create a porous building, basically. A typology which is in courtyard, which is related also to a lot of those typologies that you can find in the villages. And a size and a scale that creates somehow a community size or something that you can relate to a space, a common space. This is the typology in plan. And this is all the villages that we developed for 2007. The first one was this one, the second one that you just see, the third one in Ho Chi Minh, and the final one that we finalized just this year. So during 15 years, we've done a lot of village for FPT, basically. And this is all the typology. I don't want to go in detail because there is structure question, there is circulation question, which develop along the years. And actually, this is basically the first one, which is here, and the last one that we just finished this year. So a lot of interesting, actually, outcome of these ideas to start IT office or campus and to start it as a village, as a heritage typology. Okay, Jacob Factory. Jacob Factory is a Swiss client, which is very important. The context, when we talk about context, we talk a lot about where you are, the climate, but the clients, huge part of the context, the clients. And this one is a Swiss client, actually. And we have, of course, study a little bit all this industrial zone that is all over the big cities in Vietnam, and actually become more and more like a belt around the cities. And you can see there's this village, but there is also this industrial park that's coming, which is as big as the village. And of course, again, the idea is, can we do maybe the industrial park, or can we do these factories as a village, basically? And we start to work on that. And if you see the figures, this one is huge. So in 2010, there is 256 industrial park in Vietnam. Now we are come to 400 and maybe even more today. So it's clear that if we can imagine that the factory can be a green factory, can be a village scale, where you have actually a large park in the center, and you have games and all community space in the center, and all the circulation is cross-ventilated, no aircon, and even the hall for the installation here are cross-ventilated. And imagine that actually the whole things become a small village by itself. Guess what? During COVID, this factory was already closed, and actually all the people working here came here with the family, and they stay 4 months in this village. So actually our vision became true thanks to the COVID and the pandemic, but it was amazing, and actually they love it because they have that kind of environment with the cafeteria, all cross-ventilate, they have a game in the center, the badminton or whatever, so it becomes a small community, a small village, and the capacity that a low-rise and a horizontal densification, we were talking about vertical densification, the horizontal densification, which is much closer to a village type, is very interesting and can generate a lot of community, actually. Some detailings. The whole is totally ventilated. And what is amazing, the clients, the Swiss clients, we calculate with these planters the size, the depth, to not have water in the corridor, but actually we cannot tell him 100% that there will be some times in the years, maybe twice a year, the water will go more than half of the corridor. And this is kind of maybe Swiss mindset, or I don't know. He said, we need to accept that nature twice a year take over. And actually, he accepts that it will be totally flooded, or more than half. And actually, that's something beautiful. Not all clients accept that, I can tell you. But and then we become that. We become a village around the park. And of course, compared to the old Sci factory, it's something quite different. Anyway, we go to village in the sky, because why the city cannot be a village? This is a competition that we done in China, Shenzhen, which is a very specific kind of environment, because it's a city that in 30 years go from 300 million people to 14 million in 30 years. Even Singapore, it looks super slow compared. And this is what you got. 7 million of the 14 millions live in urban village. What is urban village? It's those kind of very dense and very narrow street where they're supposed to be 2 floor or 3 floor. They come out to be 6 at the end, or 7 sometimes. And actually, in 2010, this is the location where there is this urban village. And actually, along the years, there was different phase where this urban village expand in terms of land use, taking over into agriculture, then densification, so meaning going higher, and then the last stage, which is intensification, is that the floor plan become bigger. They try to get even more GFA. So you can see that this idea of the village actually, even in a large city like Shenzhen, that you see this is the city of the future, which I'm not so sure actually, it's half is the village. So when we did the competition, we said, okay, let's go for doing a lot of mini village in the sky. 100 units per block, actually 100 per block, which become a small village. And then we start to stack, because the density was super high, it was 6. And then we start to say, okay, why not taking this urban village, going vertically, starting to break the wall effect, bring different ground level, every 12 story. Why 12 story? 12 story, I was living in the countryside, Switzerland, and my block was 8 floor. And I was here, my mom from above can look at me and recognize me at 8th floor. After 10, 12 floor, you don't recognize even your kids. So somehow the scale is super important. Of course, Le Corbusier said 366 is the scale of the human, but the scale of the building to be recognizable is maybe 12 floor. More than 12 floor, you cannot guess even how many floor. Maybe it's 18, maybe it's 16, maybe it's 22. You don't see it actually, or you have to do a lot of effort. So we decide 12 floor like average, and we play with that honeycomb to open the angle, open the view, and we create a village in the air, which is actually 4 strata of a village in the air. Even now, 4 strata, yes, with different elevated ground, which become the park, become the facilities. And actually, what is interesting is that this village maybe wants to go here, because here there is badminton, here there is tennis, and then here is kindergarten. And then horizontally, the village start to play around. And then we start to get somehow a village in the air. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to, say something. Starting from the 3 times of the village, which are very popular in Vietnam. You know, if you know, in Hanoi there are thousands of villages. Yeah. In Saigon we have also thousands of villages. Now become the handcraft village. Scattering all over the city, including in city core and the Củ Chi, Hóc Môn. That's quite a lot. So I think it's a good capture, of the local identity using the village and how to transform the values of the village with green space and the community connection to the new design model in 3 times. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we have a Japanese architect's practice in Ho Chi Minh City since 2006. Sanuki Daisuke, please. So he's an architect, born in Japan, moved to Vietnam in 2009, and working with Võ Trọng Nghĩa, partners for quite a long time. And he runs his own office design since when? You run your own office in 2011, so only 3 years.
Yeah.
Sanuki architects in Ho Chi Minh cities have been practiced and designed a wide range of fields from architectural design, interior to urban space. And today he will share with us very insights practice of her residential house design in Vietnam with the title Potentiality of the Blank in Vietnam.
Okay. Hello, I am San. Sorry. But how to stop here? Okay. Hello, I'm Sanuki, and I have a design office in the Ho Chi Minh City, and it's great for honor to have the presentation such a wonderful place. Thank you very much. In this the presentation, I like to talk a little bit about what I'm thinking about when I work in architecture design in Vietnam. It's a very short presentation, so that for just 50 minutes, everybody confusing and very like a headache, but I will try to to explain what I can do thinking when I to designing. I want to share with you just essence of what our solution, what we are thinking. I start living in Vietnam. In the 2010, and about 14 years that have passed. During that time, I have completed various projects. During that time, Vietnam has developed greatly and cityscape has changed dramatically. Although it has become more convenient, I feel that there are more and more places that are somewhat boring or futurist. As an architect, we need to actively choose not only what we will remind, but also what we must remind. It's about relate about this, the talk show's theme maybe. This relate to the theme of this event. We believe it is about important to design architecture and urban design spaces that we are unique to Vietnam by defining what the consisted the heritage and how to describe Vietnamese space and the experience in the country's changing urban space. From here, I like to talk about what we are thinking to be important spatial characteristic of Vietnam, along with some keywords. Thickness, tightness, tightness. And as you all know, the most urban area in Vietnam are made up by tube house. It's like I said, I've heard that 60 to 70% of the residents in Vietnam is tube house, And the narrow house and with about no gap between them, you enter the hem from the main street to access each building. Vietnam has the fairly dense urban configuration, which is very tight compared to the other Southeast Asian countries. Like Ho Chi Minh City has a tropical climate. It's very hot, but if you are outside under the shade, a cool breeze pours in. in a super tight urban environment like a Ho Chi Minh City, outdoor space is very important, and all kinds of the activities appeared on the street. The creating about this distinctive landscape. Next is about like the reference the Vietnamese social house. This is there is a lot of like the remaining social house in the Ho Chi Minh City. These buildings, which will disappear in the futures, but created a very lively landscape. And I think we can find many like a hint of from the character of Vietnam. This is a social house in District 3. Like these pictures, I take pictures because I always walking around about this city, and the left one is about people to move it about their like a sofa in about their corridor space. You know, the keyword is occupying. As you can see in these photos, the exterior corridor are filled with diverse activity of various residents. Also, this is the apartment complex. The public space is customized in various ways by residents. Like as many like outdoor space are occupied, and like public and private area is not so much clear and merged together. This is the very characteristic way of usage the outdoor space in Vietnam. From now, I like to explain what we are thinking, how to work, how to design in Vietnam. Next, I like to explain the blank space theme that we always use about when design our project. When starting about architecture design, we usually start with about the building design showing in the black like this one, the left side. To start from what we are designing in like a box, you know. And however, I believe that the most important aspect of the designing in Vietnam is how to obtain the empty space shown in the white, the right side. As shown, I want to explain again, but usually the architecture design is made by the left way, to start from a black box. But actually, when I started to design in Vietnam, we always to think from the white, you know, the left figure, you know. And this is because, as I mentioned earlier, in addition to the tight urban space of Vietnam, we are confident that Vietnamese are very active in outdoor space, and that this is a wonderful special of Vietnam that should remain. We named about empty space is a blank and applied it to our design. As shown in the left side as a figures, the blank does not refer or not only the physical space, but also this physical space, such as emptiness or void, but also the condition of the space that we accepted to change. I don't have so much time, but I like to explain my project, you know, some project, just 2 or 3 projects. This is our first one, apartment in Binh Tam project. And the left one is about Alaya View, located in the center of the Ho Chi Minh City. It's a high density area. The surrounding building were built up, creating a banana-shaped empty lot. You know. We wanted to use about this characteristic empty space in the tight city, as it is about our design. This is about the pictures of when a demolition about an original building. It can see the banana shape. You know. When they come up with about idea to cut about the space is a void from the maximum volume at the building, like this one, that we have to try to cut from the maximum building to keep it a courtyard and to have a lot of the outdoor space. This is a sketch like a very big like courtyard. It's connecting together with some organically. And this is about from this on the left side is about the garden entered from the entrance, and right view is about from the courtyard in the second floor. This is about like a front view from the about like the guest room. It is connecting about like we always use about the outdoor space in semi-outdoor space, a lanai space, to be connected in the courtyard. Instead of the building to the maximum to create a floor, we design an open space where people can feel about greenery and the wind in a tight urban space by arranging to the blank to create a new value of the space. The next is about the house in the Ho Chi Minh City's District 10. And this is about the graphics of that are showing about building density by like a mean of the sketch of the area photograph of the site. You can see how dense, how intensely the dense of the Ho Chi Minh City in District 10. It's crazy. I never seen such about very tight area. But yeah, of course, about when I show the Japanese guy, that everybody feels how to solve about fire truck something to go enter something. It's very difficult. But you see but this is the current condition, and our building is here, And this is a drone photo. The building in the middle of the house of this is our design. But surrounding building are very built up. You cannot see about him. And the approach our house is also just 1 meter, And I cannot explain about detail, but like here we are studying how to create a blank space. The site is so built up that the normal design would have like a result to the dark and humid space in the first floor. So we try to first cut about the building according to the solar movement of the sun, and then to let in the natural light reflect from the from the background to the cutting surface. We try to cut about like I say that according to the sun moving, and try to get about reflection lighting to go enter. And this is about from the facade photo. It looks very straight from the outside, but the ones inside in the space is very open and spacious. And the two volumes, the cut and the nangu, are openings through which natural light is reflected once onto the floor, and then into the room. This is a way to avoid the direct sunlight from the direct light from the entering the room. Time is how much? No, not enough. 4 minutes more. Okay. 2 minutes more. Okay. Okay, sorry. This is just like a photo, It's about third project. This is the last project. It's about like the floating house in the Tuduk. It's the latest project of ours. And this project is like a similarly focused on how to create a blank space. The flooring slab with a cantilever supported by ultra-thin concrete crumb create about an open space that seems to be integrated with the garden. Most of most of this house can be opened by movable door, and when we open all, 90% of the floor become outdoor space. We call about almost outdoor house. We have the focus on the here on the Vietnamese rich outdoor lifestyle and attempt to maximize it by like defining it as a blank space. One of the key points is to propose a structural frame. One of the key points of the proposal is to the structure frame to make a new structure frame. The structure with cantilever and the lift strap is about updated by like existing Vietnamese conventional construction method. So that it means we are not using about too much like a high-tech way, but we try to arrange from the about existing technique of Vietnam and how to update and to make a new idea, a new design too. And the house is built so that that's only the floor float among the greenery of the garden. The residents can enjoy, the people can enjoy the variety of the outdoor space created between the 3 floating slabs. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh, you're fine. Thank you so much, Tanuki. So I just love the way that he speaks about his philosophy, and particularly how, like, with such ease you can design in such difficult situations, but it just looks, it makes my hair stand on end because I just love your work so much. Like, so thank you so much. Okay, so I'm giving the nod to my colleagues. So the next 2 presenters, so we've got a double team act going on here. Both my colleagues, my dearest colleagues from RMIT. So standing to my left, we have newly appointed senior lecturer, Dr. Andy Stiff. And Andy is, what is it, experimental filmmaker? No, kind of multidisciplinary designer. Actually, I would call him an artist, because when you see his work, like, it's like, I just find it like poetically beautiful, and it just sucks you in. And it is. And he's so humble about it as well. Like, and he'll show it to you today as well. I'm not setting him up. He definitely will not disappoint. I guarantee it. He's astounding. So this is Andy, and something that you might not know about Andy is that as long as I've known him, which is now probably 6-7 years, he is probably the person that I know that has the deepest understanding of District 4 Hems area, and he's got this love relationship with that area that goes into the everyday and to the heart of the essence of the experience of District 4, and it's phenomenal. So yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, now we have Becky Liu, so another one of my all-time favorite colleagues to work with. I'll stand to the side while I'm introducing her. So she's an associate lecturer. Her background is in multidisciplinary design as well, but more in multimedia. She's got a fundamental interest in looking at the future of heritage. What else can I say? She's got a screen printing background, but also does a lot with new technology as well, image, placemaking, the relationship, same as Andy. Andy explores this fundamental relationship between urban occupation and the built environment, and Becky is now coming into that as well, so that's why they're doing this collab together. So super interesting projects. Just one thing that you might not know about Becky is that she's the co-founder of the Saigon Creative Club on Facebook that organizes a whole heap of activities. So she's really into trying to create conversation, particularly around young creatives and doing things. So they're both awesome people, just in general, but very happy to hand over the mic to them to show their work.
Can use this one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. I think. Well, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the work we're going to show today is kind of based on the work we got in this festival, but it's kind of also part of a wider creative practice, which the aims which I've kind of written down have all been discussed by everybody else. So it's kind of a really interesting day in terms that from different practices, everyone's kind of looking at the same things. Possibly the one thing that I can say that we're trying to do, and I try to do in my practice, is that I've got the luxury to focus on studying and filming and recording and documenting urban space, whereas an architect or a planner or we were talking about the top-down approach, they don't have that luxury. So it's harder for them to engage in community in those kind of environments. So our project started out of a River City network joining a thing called the River Cities Network, which is RMIT joined this about a year and a half ago, and it's a global network of 40 plus, probably more now, institutions, mainly kind of research institutions through universities, etc., looking at river cities. And when we kind of were setting ours up, we were kind of looking at different sites around Saigon. We kind of thought the Kente Canal had something about it that was really interesting. For those that don't know, the Kente Canal is the canal that divides District 4 from District 7. And as soon as we started looking at it, of course, it began to reveal a few nice little gems, which we've managed to kind of incorporate into the different aspects of the project. So we've got several people working on this project. So I kind of wanted to touch on this notion of modernization, because that's something that the government kind of talks a lot about and is kind of an agenda, which is fair enough. And that's, you know, obviously they want to see a good, equal, equitable, modern city for their residents. But obviously, as we've seen, it touches on a lot of very sensitive problems in terms of how you engage community and community space within that process of modernization. And there was something I can't remember where it is, so don't quote me on this, but I remember reading that you know, the apartment blocks are something like half the density of a hem space. So the idea that we just build up probably isn't necessarily going to resolve a housing problem. In fact, could potentially make it worse. So the project we're looking at, we were kind of looking at the Kente Canal, but we're also looking at the built environment. My colleague is going to talk about District 4 in a minute, and I will just quickly go over District 7, the side that I looked at. But we're really looking at the role of media in a way of being able to document how the unexceptional and the ordinary spaces of the city are kind of perceived. Because there's a lot of talk in this modernization process about preserving the heritage of the city, which tends to be the French villas and the mid-century modernist stuff is beginning to be picked up and recognized now. But actually, as Sanuki's just pointed out, you know, the hem structure and this super tight kind of built environment is an incredibly valuable document of how we should understand and see the potential of cities that are going to have to deal with mass migration and all of the implications of people coming together. Yeah, I've got lots of things about. I'll hand over to you because we'll run out of time.
Hello, is that working? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to, hi, I'm Becky, Andy's kind of collaboration partner. So I'm just going to talk about the process of observing and making for our research from the perspective of a designer and an artist, especially one that's multidisciplined as well. And both of us have all these different approaches that, you know, we are trying to weave together. So first of all, you know, we looked at D4 and D7, and I took on D4 because Andy was really familiar with D4 already, and we just felt like there should be some contrast in that. So ultimately, Andy's always asking what fascinates me about the spaces in D4. And as someone mentioned earlier, that's communities. The communities that are present. They're a way to understand the connection of people in space. Communities are a way to understand heritage, culture, and local identity. And the way that we look at the city is because in the communities in D4, they're super open. So before we've had like some of the speakers already mentioned, and so there'll be an overlap in some of the process that the public space becomes private space. The private space becomes public space. In between the housing, you have the hems, or the public space that's there, and almost you become an extension of that. That's an extension of your space, your family space, the community space, and how you used to choose to use it as well, and the function of it. And ultimately, to observe that and to understand it is to be immersed in it. And it's quite easy to do because it's so inviting in a way. So really, I'm fascinated by the spaces in D4 because I feel there's a lot of moving parts going on that are between the people that live there, their activities every day, the built environment and the communities that exist through their routines and their habits. Everything comes together to become a multi-sensorial experience. And before, Thierry touched on that as well with atmospheres and capturing that experience. Everything's almost tangible when you're in that space. So through the light, the sound, the texture, the movement, the fast pace, the slowing down, the stopping and starting of the motorbikes, just generally just everyday activities, there's so much going on. And through that, you see all these forms of interactions between people, these small exchanges that you start to notice through the kind of habits and rituals, as I mentioned. So ultimately, how do you capture that, and how do you then reconstitute that into your artwork or into your practice? So to understand and analyze it, you kind of almost have to be in it. And this is important because there's such a complexity between the relationships between things, especially in Vietnamese culture. So much deep meaning even in terms of the language. So it's the same as well in terms of living. And the environment that's built around you and how you shape to live in it and adapt as well. Sorry, just trying to pause for a moment. So how have I looked at it? I've kind of obviously just been walking around, observing it, doing things like having coffee, changing the times that I'm there to witness these moments of interactions. When you're having a coffee, especially if you're kind of just sat with the local neighbors as well, then you get to really observe. You hear parts of conversations. And as someone that's mixed heritage, for me, there's like, I maybe not understand everything, but I can still read body language and I can see and smell and hear everything. And this is kind of what I did. So I documented like everything from photographs, video recordings, audio recordings, and then I started mark making from this. So my interpretation is to capture these atmospheres and this sense of this interaction that's almost dancing around. It's not supposed to be literal the way that I've done it, but more haptically. So through like even the detail in the concentration of dot work and line work, I've kind of tried to mimic and capture those different atmospheres that come together to form the communities that I kind of see and are present in D4. Through that as well, I've pulled out such details from the sound and the noise to recreate patterns and textures. And before, I can't see, Dr. Huan Chuan said, you mentioned that you were like, it's that lived history, right? It's the same, it's that lived experience of everyday activity from all the mark makings on the walls, and as Andy and I always speak about, the bike that hits the corner of the wall every day. So it's that really captures the essence of what's happening in that community. And through the process of what we've done, mine is more kind of turning these drawings and layering them to become the AR sculptures in our artwork and into other art forms. Okay, I think I'm done.
Okay, so I looked at the District 7 side of this, and one of the things that we discovered when we were looking at the maps early on is that there was a bit of controversy when the canal was built in terms that the local people in the Can Hoi village didn't want the canal built. They argued that it would turn what we now know as District 4 into an island, which it is. So the French agreed they would build bridges and things. So it was quite controversial. So we started out kind of tracing what used to be the old border of the Can Hoi, which is still kind of part of a river. It kind of appears and disappears in the middle of that top half of District 7. But you can kind of follow it all the way around up to the big lake, which they've built, which is now near that sort of 8-lane motorway next to Eco Park or whatever it's called, residential block. And what was interesting was to sort of think about how actually the area had grown up in a very kind of similar way to District 4. It's very tight alleyways, very tight-knit community, but its engagement with the canal was kind of interesting because there were shops selling big kind of metal chains and anchors and whatever for the barges that line up on the river, which kind of got me thinking there's kind of lots of really interesting things, which is how the project maybe will develop, looking at notions of migration and particularly kind of food migration from the Mekong Delta up into this area. The way I started to try and look at it was a bit earlier on. There was a shop with lots of crisps and whatever that's all on the outside, and I was kind of got really fascinated by the fact that the shop owner only had a tiny gap in which to kind of operate, because everything else was about maximizing the products for, I'm assuming, all the kids that are there kind of wanting to eat everything. So I kind of thought this idea of kind of small gaps and fissures was kind of quite interesting. So when we started developing our ARs, that was kind of the line I took it down. I thought I'd take these augmented realities, which are coming up in a minute, and start looking at the notion of gaps and fissures. And I think the first AR that will come up in a minute is of these crisp packets. But this kind of interested me, or kind of triggered sort of thoughts about the kind of spatial arrangements, how these spaces are organized, how they're arranged. Obviously, I'd done my PhD in District 4, so I was kind of very familiar. But there was something slightly different, slightly off compared to District 4, which, again, I've got to kind of begin to expand on. I kind of was thinking about this spatial arrangement, and I was thinking about how where the majority of the people in the city come from a migration from the rural communities. So I was thinking about, why do we have these very tight spaces? Why is everything dense and compact beyond just the obvious value of land and trying to fit your family into a small space? And I was thinking, well, it's the same when you go to the countryside. If you go to a farm in the countryside, the land that is used for communication or for travelling up and down in between paddy fields or fields of dragon fruit, whatever, is tiny, because you maximise the land that you can make money from through farming. And if you look at the houses are very utilitarian. They're kind of compact, they're tight. And there's this sort of sharing amongst communities. So there are kind of very strong kind of rural properties, which then begin to emerge within the city. So to kind of wrap this up, looking more on this, I was kind of thinking, I was interested in the quote this morning, which was talking about the Japanese architect who was saying that to kind of preserve heritage, you need to break it and rebuild it. When I was doing my PhD, I got started using this term reconstitution. So the idea that I kind of film these spaces, film these environments, and then reconstitute them through a kind of a process of a kind of post-production kind of process where I kind of edit, and as you could see from the films a bit earlier on. And this idea of reconstitution is, for me, is this kind of similar to this idea of perhaps of kind of preserving this heritage, but not preserving it with a glass jar over it, but preserving it in the way that it actually still has a value and it still has a life of its own. Where the project goes next, I think there's still a lot of mileage in this idea about being able to look at environments. Coming in this morning, I just kind of was looking at the riverfront in District 1, and you just look at this row of really bland tower blocks. It just makes you very grateful that we've got people like Sanuki and others that are kind of operating in Saigon to kind of generate spaces that capture and hold the essence, the heritage of the people that actually make Saigon.
Thank you very much. A new form of presenting Mr. Film and Mrs. Film. We have Mrs. Styles, and now we have films. Thank you. From the perspective of an architect and an artist, they all look at urban and canals, system as a heritage, a daily heritage. Normally, we read and interpret urban space through text, spatial, design and buildings, and morphology, you look at the urban space from a very central not so visual, but very, different way. But together, we enrich our look, our reading, our interpretation to the cities. And I think that they all reserve the term heritage for that. Thank you. So we move to the next presenter, Carmen Valonino, an Italian architect, young, beautiful. He has over 17 years of practice in the field of architecture, working mainly on residential hospitalities as well as mixed-use commercial projects throughout Europe and Southeast Asia. He has now living in Ho Chi Minh City since 2016, working as a COO in CSP and 3TI company, where she's managed the architectural and interior development. He comes with us to us with the topics mixed patterns. So please welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for being here today. Allow me a special thanks to RMIT for the honor of being a speaker at such an exciting event. When I'm being invited to participate to this symposium of creativity and about heritage through spatial making and mapping, I thought, how could my experience be insightful and enlightening for young designers and future professionals of Vietnam in the creativity industry. As been said, I'm a licensed architect that has been practicing this wonderful work for nearly 17 years. I studied and worked in Italy, my home country, and I've been working in the architectural planning and interior design industry, as well in construction management. So I've always been an interest in technology of construction, so very technical aspects. And I've been doing this in Vietnam since 7 years now, since I've been relocating in this very vibrant city, very energetic country. And reflecting on my experience with these dual aspects, I thought it could have been summarized as a mixed pattern. So, as technicians, we are involved in the creative process thanks to our specific skills. We do have our own language, we do have understanding of building codes, regulations, so a very specific background and knowledge. We do have a language, we have software literacy, but as well we have an experience as human beings. So this creative act is a process of research and discovery that draws from different spheres: the scientific laws, the laws of nature, the material dimension. And especially for architectural projects, it's the character of the place, a very specific understanding of the typical aspects of a place. And the so-called invisible laws that ultimately are very important because sometimes they give the direction to your project. And these invisible laws, they are traditions, habits. So all these components work together in the definition of a spatial making. So they all combine together to give life to a new living thing. In botany, we will talk about grafting. So the art of connecting plants, living things, that they all can coexist, but together they create a new species of plant. And these will be ultimately capable of generating fruit, a new living thing. So we said that the spatial making and mapping is a creative act it's a process of research and discovery. But why discovery? So one of the main law of physics says that there is no detectable change in the quantity of matter during an ordinary reaction. So according to this law, we have the same quantity of matter at the beginning and at the very end of the reaction. It's a transformation. So it's an input and output of energies. The input of the maker of an energy, and at the very end of this transformation, there will be an exchange, an output of energy. So according to this law, everything is already inside the matter. It's just our responsibility and action as makers to extract, to deduct this energy out of the matter. Seems easy, right? But on another hand, we do have the laws of nature. So the laws of nature are in a contraposition, distinct sets of moral and legal propositions. The creative acts pursue to generate meanings out of this matter, some behaviors in the use of architecture. And eventually this will create policy, the fundamentals of our society. For example, the design of a public space in our cities is an expression of primary social needs. We are all humans and we do need spaces to gather, to meet together, to do our actions. And this need has to be shaped. So we are adding, as architects and designers, features to these functions. We do shape of this space according to the needs of the function. We are forecasting situations, we are proposing lifestyles, and yet this inherits some specific components, the memories of the place. On the screen now you can see two maps. They are two maps of two cities that they are very dear to me. The first one is my hometown, Milan, and the second one is my adoptive city, here, Saigon. So the first time I saw the map of Saigon, I was really impressed, and it spontaneously reminded me of Milan due to the similarities of these two cities with an extensive network of waterways, channels. We talked before about canals and streams of water. So these two cities, despite of being kilometers far away from each other, to totally different cultures, they have a very similar history in the development and in the use of these waterways. So, for example, they were used at the very beginning as a way to transportation, channels for trading, for social gatherings. So, as we said, behaviors in the use of architecture. And eventually, due to the development of the cities, to the needs of building and constructing, they have been buried and covered with the common streets that we see nowadays. But there are also countable and visible aspects that count while planning. So what I'm showing now, it's the method we are using in normal practice to analyze and understanding the space. We commonly refer to them as a material dimension. If we imagine to observe the space as a geographer, we will refer and we will describe it, making reference to 4 fundamental categories: the climate, the morphology, hydrography, vegetation. This is an example of a land study for a master plan for leisure and residential project that my company has been developing in Thanh Nguyen province near Hanoi. And that shows the impact of these study categories in mapping the territory. So our work, your future work, will be on site. It's not a work that we will do on remote. So you have to visit, to walk the place. You have to understand this morphology, this material dimension of the place. Because most likely he will have already answers to your direction for the project. So we do understand the place, we visit, we collect pictures, and ultimately all these informations, they connect together and we combine into scheme, sketches, map. This is how we map the place and the space. And the land and the control of the space determine the functional aspects of the territory. So the concept for its future development. All these diagrams, they are already the briefing, and then they all combine the ingredients that will lead to the understanding of what's the best choice for that project. And of course, it really depends also on the client direction that we'll give to your project. So the final picture of the concept, in this case, for example, you can notice how the architecture is nearly invisible despite, for example, the infrastructure network, because the strength of that space, it was its landscape. So it was the main ingredient, and we had to respect it. However, despite the predominance of all these visible aspects, we cannot deny the importance of non-visible elements in mapping the territory. So traditions, habits, economic decisions, political choices, and historical factors, they all transform the matter. And this dimension has both an individual and collective value. We are all unique persons, but we all belong to a community. And this community, the community we belong to, they all share values. And sometimes this value as a group, as a community, they are even stronger than the individual values. This was very clear in the ancient Roman religion, where there was the myth and the figure of the genius loci, literally the spirit of the place. So this was understood as the sense that people have of a place, a guardian, a god, a protector of the fate of individuals. This spirit gives territory character, essence. And similarly, Vietnam tradition has Thanh Thô Địa, the god of the place. So the identity of a group is closely linked to the god and the tradition of the place. This invisible laws, this immaterial dimension, it's very clear in the cultural aspects of communities. For example, the rural district of Moc Chau in the northwest region of Vietnam, I had the pleasure of visiting this area last year, has its specific local ethnic groups, white and black Thai Hmong people with traditional dresses, languages, folklore. And Vietnam has many of these ethnic groups. It's the vivid expression of this stratigraphy of cultures. In a relatively small country, there are 54 recognized ethnic groups with their own belief, culture, language. So to conclude, although architecture and design are often perceived as disciplines oriented to represent the pursuit of beauty, innovation, technological development, and sometimes for the beauty for itself, they have lately changed as discipline that more than ever must give answers to needs of humanity. At the very end, our planning and all our actions are oriented to the human beings. So needs like the urgency of shelters and solutions to natural disaster, we are witnessing every rainy season to flooding in the very remote rural parts of the country to the very central urban areas. And the social guidance that this emergency need require immediate answers. So our responsibilities as technicians, as a skilled professional, is to provide the best practices. And necessarily this involved a locally oriented approach rather than a neutral one. So ultimately, our main role and responsibility is to combine all these aspects, the laws of science, the laws of nature, the immaterial and material aspects, together with the invisible and cultural aspects, so that this mixed pattern can endure. Thank you.
Wow, Carmen, that was amazing. She runs off. So the thing that I really loved about that presentation was that, you know, being a foreigner here based in Vietnam, it wasn't about trying to negate where you come from or your educational background and somehow, you know, adopt a new one, or even not the opposite, which also happens, is people just negate where we are. But it's understanding from a humanities background and trying to bring to the surface those preconceived ideas, philosophies that are driving who you are and your approach, and then trying to marry them across and be sensitive to those cultural aspects. And that's super powerful, and it's really beautiful to see. And like, you know, those that concept sketch of looking at nature. I wish you were here earlier this morning, and you I think you or Mr. Munn would have been like kindred spirits talking about nature, because there was lots of nice synergies. So thank you very much. Okay. So we have our fifth speaker, who is like, I was a bit worried because he just ducked out of the door. So this is Nguyen. Now, he's given a very brief bio, so I'm going to just make sure that I get the details of his bio, and then I'm going to add to it, because I think that it needs a bit of fleshing out. He's like, no, I'm worried what you're going to say. So architect and designer based in Ho Chi Minh City. Okay, so he graduated from Van Lan University, 8 years of experience, architectural design practice at Nguyen Trong Lu Architects and 821 Studio, before co-founding Later Design in 2018. So this is what he gave me, and now I'm going to flesh out a little bit more, because I think he deserves it, as I do. So just a little background. So I saw Hua present a couple of weeks ago at PRS, which is the Practice-Based Symposium Conference of RMIT at De La Salle. And he was presenting here, sorry, they're telling me to move. I'm doing what Manuel does. So he was presenting at this conference, and I was listening, and he was put forward as being an architect designer, and I'm like, no, this guy's an artist. Like, the way that he looks at the world and looks at the everydayness and tries to find opportunities and things that people don't see in that way. Like, you know, so it's like the way that he was speaking about just his observations and taking observation as a craft, not just something we do on a daily basis. It had this philosophical underpinning, and I was like sitting on the edge of my chair wanting to hear more and more, because it was just so captivating to hear somebody just literally be so invested in what they do, and he's exceptionally good at it, but it's just so easy, and you can tell that it's just this labor of love. And I was like, wow, we've got this symposium, and I would really love for him to come and to speak, because it was really fantastic for me. And I walked away that night going, wow, that's a really interesting guy. And and he just, you know, it's just great to be able to have these sorts of opportunities and platforms where we can do this again and again, and then get more out. So excuse me for fleshing out your bio a little bit, but I just wanted to add that in, because I'm hoping that now they try to see the philosopher and artist in you as well, as just as I've seen it. So please, welcome to our stage.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah. Sorry.
The first, I'm very happy to be here to sharing some project and the way the approach many things and many projects. I will talk. I'm so sorry. I will talk by Vietnamese. Yeah. Okay. Để trong 15 phút sắp tới thì Hòa sẽ nói về một trong những cái công việc đầu tiên của Hòa, là hoàn toàn là không có liên quan tới kiến trúc hết. Đó chính là thiết kế một cái bảng hiệu cho nhà vệ sinh công cộng. Thì nam thì đi qua bên trái, còn nữ thì qua bên phải. Còn mấy bạn nhỏ thì có thể đi bất kỳ hướng nào. Và đây là một trong những cái thiết kế product đầu tiên của Hòa, đó chính là cái xe phục vụ cho khách sạn. Thì nó lấy từ cái xe hủ tiếu truyền thống của người Việt Nam mình ở Sài Gòn. Khách sạn The Mist là một khách sạn, một trong những cái dự án mà Hòa tốn mất từ 3 đến 4 năm để mà làm nó. Sau đó thì Hòa có làm một cái phiên bản nâng cấp của nó lên, thì Hòa định nghĩa lại nó không phải là một chiếc xe đẩy thức ăn nữa, mà nó là một cái bàn có khả năng di động được và nó có thể xếp gọn như là một cái console table. Thì kỳ vừa rồi thì Muji có đặt hàng Laita để mà thiết kế một cái sản phẩm, đó chính là một cái xe để mà có thể trưng bày sản phẩm cho cái hội chợ cộng đồng. Thì đây là một trong những cái ghế đầu tiên của Hòa thiết kế. Khi mà thiết kế trong một cái ngôi nhà thì sách dư thì Hòa làm cái ghế này. Và thậm chí là gạch ốp toilet dư Hòa cũng ốp lên trên cái ghế này. Và sau đó là Hòa đã khám phá nó trong một cái collection bao gồm có những cái tray và những cái đèn và những cái ghế bằng vật liệu mosaic. Thì vợ của Hòa là một trong những cái người rất là hay càu nhàu về những cái thiết kế của Hòa, tại vì cô nói rằng là mấy cái ghế của Hòa làm ngồi không có thoải mái chút nào cả, và Hòa rất là khó chịu với chuyện đó. Tuy nhiên là để mà có thể làm hài lòng vợ của mình thì Hòa cũng cố gắng ốp cho nó lên để mà ngồi cho nó thoải mái, và thực sự là cái ghế này ngồi thoải mái hơn thật. Tất nhiên là còn có một số phiên bản khác. Nói chung là nhiều khi là Hòa cảm thấy rằng lý tưởng của cuộc đời của mình đó là chống lại vợ của mình, làm tất cả những cái thứ để mà nói rằng là vợ của mình sai. Kỳ vừa rồi thì cách đây khoảng chừng 2-3 năm thì Hòa đi đổ xăng thì thấy có một cái ghế ở trạm xăng rất là đẹp, và sau đó là Hòa đã thấy thực ra cái ghế này chỉ cần chỉnh lại một chút xíu về tỷ lệ và đường nét này nó sẽ rất là tuyệt vời. Thì Hòa đã làm ra cái ghế light chair ở giữa, và sau đó là cái RC3 là một cái phiên bản nâng cấp của cái ghế light chair. Ở đây là sau đó thì mọi người khá là yêu quý nó, và Hòa tiếp tục phát triển một cái phiên bản RC4 là một cái easy chair. Thì nó làm hoàn toàn bằng... Thực ra là thiết kế thì luôn luôn chúng ta sẽ cố gắng là đi ra từ cái vật liệu và cái phương pháp chế tạo nó. Tuy nhiên rằng là đây là một cái thiết kế mà nó không có liên quan gì đến cái vật liệu phương pháp cả. Nó thậm chí nó còn hơi phản vật liệu và phương pháp nữa. 3 sản phẩm này là 3 sản phẩm mà Hòa chỉ có những ý tưởng rất là chơi đùa. Thí dụ như là cái ghế thun là chơi bằng một cái cộng thông buộc tóc. Rồi cái con nghé là từ một cái liplet, từ một cái quầy bia crab, và cái tagi band là một cái hình chơi với cái hình thể về mặt tam giác thôi. Thì sau khi mà đưa cho các cái xưởng họ làm thì Hòa không thể tin được là họ rất là thích những cái ý tưởng này, và họ làm nó ra một cách rất là nhanh chóng. Và Hòa thấy thực ra là các cái ngành thủ công mỹ nghệ nó rất là cần những cái ý tưởng mới, những cái cách mà đặt vấn đề mới. Hòa thấy rằng là ở trong cái không gian nhà ở của chúng ta thì có tủ kệ nó xuất hiện rất là nhiều, và trong một cái mộng mơ thì Hòa nghĩ rằng là Hòa muốn làm một cái kệ mà nó đi từ sảnh cho tới vào toilet. Thì ở đây là một cái kệ mà nó module và nó sử dụng những cái ván ép uốn cong được kết nối rất là đơn giản, nhưng mà chúng ta có thể, nó là một cái platform, nó là một cái thứ mà chúng ta có thể xây dựng tùy theo cái nhu cầu của mình. Đây là một cái thiết kế của Hòa được pop up ra trong cái quá trình mà Hòa đi vào thăm xưởng Ba Son khi mà nó bị đập. Thì Hòa thấy được một sợi xích và những cái mắt xích rất là to, và Hòa đã bọc nó và thiết kế ra cái armchair này. Có một ngày nọ Hòa đọc một cái tờ báo, và trong cái tờ báo đó có nói về cái chuyện mà ở bên Bảo tàng Quốc gia của Thổ Nhĩ Kỳ đang giữ một trong những bảo vật rất là quan trọng của họ, nhưng mà họ đang nghi ngờ nó xuất phát từ châu Á. Và một người Nhật đã nói rằng là tôi nghĩ rằng là cái bình này nó không phải là của Trung Quốc, mà tôi nghĩ nó là của người Việt Nam. Và cuối cùng thì họ đã phát hiện ra là cái bình này được làm từ một cái ngôi làng mà cái ngôi làng đó chính là quê của Hòa. Và người dân ở ngôi làng đó không hề biết có sự tồn tại của một làng gốm trước đó. Và sau khi mà họ khai quật lại thì họ thấy một điều là nó có một cái làng gốm, và cái làng gốm đó nó đã bị chết bởi vì cái nguồn nguyên liệu đầu vào của nó hết. Và thế là người dân làng đó đã di cư và đến Hà Nội và lập ra làng gốm Bát Tràng ngày hôm nay. Thì khi mà Hòa nhìn thấy cái bình gốm đó, Hòa là một cái kiến trúc sư thì Hòa rất là tò mò cái không gian bên trong của cái gốm nó như thế nào. Và Hòa quyết định là cắt nó làm 3 đoạn. Và khi cắt ra làm 3 đoạn thì Hòa có 3 mảnh cho mỗi bình. Và mỗi một mảnh nó tương ứng với lại một cái set đồ ăn để bàn, thí dụ như là ly, dĩa, tô. Nhưng mà quan trọng nhất của nó là hai cái bình này nó rất là nổi tiếng, tại vì nó lưu giữ lại được cái tính nam và tính nữ, tính đực và cái giống đực và giống cái. Thì sau đó thì Hòa có nhờ dân làng Chu Đậu họ làm lại bình gốm này, nhưng mà họ lại từ chối, và Hòa khá là tiếc. Cho nên là sau này thì Hòa, tất nhiên là sau này Hòa có cơ hội được làm với lại một số đơn vị gốm khác, nhưng mà Hòa chỉ cảm thấy vui khi mà người dân làng đó làm cái bình gốm đó cho mình mà thôi. Cho nên là Hòa đã quyết định làm nó bằng đồng. Tại vì ít nhất thì trong cái truyền thuyết, trong cái một huyền thoại về chất lượng của gốm Chu Đậu đó là mỏng như giấy và kêu như chuông. Và sau đó là một số những cái khám phá của Hòa về vật liệu terrazzo, đá mài. Rồi Hòa nghĩ đây là một trong những vật liệu khá là được dùng phổ biến ở Việt Nam. Khi mà còn trẻ thì hồi cấp 3 thì Hòa luôn luôn thích đi đá banh. Nhưng mà ông bà già của Hòa thì lúc nào cũng kêu Hòa là đi phụ hồ hết. Tại vì ông bà già của Hòa là chủ của một nhóm xây dựng nhỏ. Thì nói chung là Hòa không có thích, tại vì thời điểm đó Hòa thích đi đá banh nhiều hơn. Nhưng mà sau này thì khi mà nhìn thấy cái tray của Enzo Mari ở phía trên, một cái khay của Enzo Mari là một nhà thiết kế người Ý, thì Hòa đã suy nghĩ đến chuyện mà sẽ làm một cái lounge, một cái ghế dài để mà có thể nghỉ ngơi được. Tại vì Hòa rất ấn tượng bởi cái thép hình chữ Y của nó. Hòa rất là quan tâm đến cái cách mà con người ta tương tác với lại cái cuộc sống của mình. Hòa nghĩ rằng là ông này là một người rất là thông minh. Hòa không nghĩ rằng ông ấy thích đi tắm biển. Và đây, Hòa hết sức thông minh. Và tất nhiên là người Việt Nam của chúng ta cũng rất là thông minh. Hòa rất là quan sát nhiều thứ ở trong cái ngóc ngách của cuộc sống, và Hòa tìm thấy được rất là nhiều những cái chi tiết thú vị. Cái cách mà người ta làm nó một cách rất là trực diện và trong một tình trạng vô thức, không có một ý thức nào về thẩm mỹ cả, nhưng mà từ đó nó tạo ra được những cái cách tiếp cận mà Hòa thấy nó không có trong sách vở. Và đây là cái ghế của Vẹt Ban Tông. Hòa nghĩ rằng là Vẹt Ban Tông sẽ rất là hài lòng khi nhìn thấy cái chiếc ghế này, mặc dù là Vẹt Ban Tông đã qua đời. Hòa mỗi một tháng là Hòa sẽ đi thăm các cái xưởng, trong vòng cứ 1-2 tuần là sẽ đi thăm xưởng, cho nên là Hòa rất là đam mê xưởng. Tại vì mỗi lần đi đến một xưởng, Hòa lại cảm thấy các cái người công nhân của Việt Nam của mình họ thông minh quá đi. Ở đây là một cái ghế của một chàng trai mà chỉ suốt ngày ngồi và sau đó chấm hàn mà thôi. Và anh ta đã làm ra một cái ghế siêu nhỏ, một cái ghế nó giống y chang như ghế dành cho em bé vậy. Đây là một cái doorstop, một cái chặn cửa. Ở đây là mấy gái của văn phòng Hòa. Tất nhiên là Hòa đang muốn nói về cục đá, cái ghế của tự nhiên. Thực ra là cuộc sống xung quanh của người Việt Nam mình nó rất là hay, nó rất là nhiều sự thú vị. Và trong cái khoảng thời gian dịch, khi mà Hòa phải đối mặt với lại phải bị lockdown và ở trong nhà, thì Hòa thấy rằng là cái không gian trong nhà nó không phù hợp với lại cho chúng ta có thể ở được 24 tiếng đồng hồ. Cho nên là Hòa nghĩ rằng là, và lúc đó Hòa phát hiện ra là có quá nhiều thứ mà chúng ta đang không hiểu về cái không gian sống của mình. Và Hòa cố gắng đi tìm, nghiên cứu 300 món đồ vật điển hình người Việt Nam mình để hiểu về cái cách mà họ mua nó, họ sử dụng nó, họ sửa chữa nó, họ phá hủy nó hoặc họ tái chế nó. Hòa nghĩ rằng một cái nghiên cứu như thế này nó sẽ giúp thúc đẩy về một cái cách tiếp cận mới trong cách mà chúng ta hiểu về chúng ta có thể tương tác với đồ đạc như thế nào và nó có ý nghĩa như thế nào. Thậm chí trong khoảng thời gian này thì bên văn phòng Hòa đang biên dịch cái cuốn Vẻ đẹp của những vật dụng hàng ngày, The Beauty of Everyday Things của Soetsu Yanagi, là một trong những người rất là giỏi. Ông ấy là cha của Sori Yanagi, mà Sori Yanagi còn được coi là cha đẻ của ngành thiết kế Nhật Bản. Hòa hay nói đùa Soetsu Yanagi giống như là ông nội của ngành thiết kế Nhật Bản vậy đó. Thì những người đó truyền cảm hứng cho Hòa rất là nhiều. Ở đây là một cái side table làm bằng nhôm, giúp cho mọi người có thể gần nhau hơn. Một cái thang để mà có thể sửa chữa và kết hợp với lại treo đồ. Một cái chậu trồng cây để giúp cho cái không gian ở dưới trở nên sạch sẽ hơn. Một cái thớt để mà giúp cho một cái thớt cắt để mà giúp cho những cái khi mà chúng ta cắt nó không bị rơi vãi ra bên ngoài, tại vì nó hình thang. Và một cái kẹp để mà cắm chầm, sử dụng cơ cấu 5 châm. Và một cái step stool có thể xếp mở được để mà cho cái cuộc sống đô thị của chúng ta nó trở nên nó gọn gàng hơn. Hay là cái cách mà bên văn phòng Hòa tiếp cận với lại một cái vật thể giống như là cái đồ chặn sách vậy đó. Thì các cái cuốn sách nó sẽ xếp lên trên cái con dốc này, những cái bậc thang này, và đổ ở bên trong để mà giúp cho các cuốn sách nó đứng vững hơn. Hoặc là một số những cái design study về một cái túi tốt rất là bình thường thôi, nhưng mà Hòa sẽ luôn luôn cộng hoặc trừ nó đi để nó tạo ra những cái tương tác mới mẻ hơn chỉ với một cái túi tốt. Hay là chỉ với lại một cái ghế đôn bình thường, Hòa cũng sẽ cộng và trừ nó để mà khám phá về các cách khác nhau. Và nó có thể là một cái vật dụng gì hay không. Ở đây là một cái bàn được làm hoàn toàn bằng gỗ, nhưng mà nó được tháo rời ra và nó được đóng bởi 4 cái chân. Sadiki, you relate? Và trên một lý thuyết mộng mơ thì cái bàn này có thể dài vô tận. Đây là một cách tiếp cận của Hòa đối với kiến trúc khi mà Hòa có thiết kế cái headquarter cho hãng Generali. Đây là một cái công trình cải tạo khi mà nó là tòa nhà trong một cái trường quốc tế. Và vì cái headquarter đó họ cần có một cái sảnh, cho nên là Hòa đã quyết định là làm cho nó một cái box bên ngoài. Tại vì Hòa phát hiện ra cái sân ở phía trước khá là rộng á, cho nên là Hòa làm. Thì lúc đó khi mà người ta vào thì người ta sẽ vào cái sảnh đó là chính, trước khi mà vào từng tầng một. Đây là một cái dự án mà nhà ở cho công nhân ở Tây Ninh. Thì đây là một cái Hòa phát hiện ra là các cái nhà ở Tây Ninh á, thì thường là sau khi mà xây dựng nhà xong á, thì sau 1 năm á, là họ sẽ luôn luôn cơi nới nó ra. Thì Hòa quyết định là Hòa cơi nới sẵn cho họ luôn. Ở đây là đối với Hòa thì kiến trúc nó rất là đơn giản. Nó có thể là một cái lò xo, nó có thể là một tấm ván, nó có thể là một cái lồng. Hoặc nó chỉ đơn thuần là một cái bóng mà thôi. Ok, cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều. Dạ.
Thật sự xúc động, một năng lượng sáng tạo mà mình không bỏ sót một tấm hình nào. Nếu mà giá mà tất cả những cái kiến trúc sư hay là designer mà có cái năng lượng, mà có cái tình cảm, tình yêu với vạn vật, với tất cả mọi thứ, nâng tầm tất cả mọi thứ bình thường trở nên phi thường như thế này, thì có lẽ là thế giới sẽ vô cùng là tốt đẹp. Cảm ơn bạn rất là nhiều. The last presenter. Yeah. Okay, please welcome Mai Hùng Trung from Hanoi ad hoc. Trung is an architect, initiators of Hanoi ad hoc, graduated with honors from ENSA Paris Malaquis, France, và Leibniz University, Hanover in Germany. Trung has always been fascinated by the urban chaos, banalities that he considers as indispensable, intriguing fundamental urban changes. His work focusing on diverse urban renewal projects. For the post-industrial context and defining modern vernacular architectures and urban pattern, his investigation fields range from rural village in Vietnam and European shrinking to cities and hinterlands. Trung is a recipient of and nominees of numerous of international awards and competition. Now he comes to our symposium with the thrilling in the flesh.
Sorry, I'm not a good public speaker, but I try to do my best. So my name is Trung Mai. So normally I say Mai Hung Trung, but everybody think my name is Hung. So now I think I should be clear on the version of my name. It's Trung Mai. Okay. I'm an architect, like many of you here. Self-trained urban designer and amateur researcher. I'm the founder of Hanoi Ad Hoc, which is a research creation platform based in Hanoi. Oh, the camera is there. Okay. Should I start again? No. Also I have my own architecture practice firm. But I focus at the moment mainly on Hanoi Ad Hoc. For this talk today, I will maybe just focus on Hanoi Ad Hoc talk. Introduction. Sorry, because I have to assume that I'm an architect, but I never built anything with my own name yet, because I spend most of my work experience working for other people like John Nouvel or Dominic Perrault. So, and in those big offices, to realize something, it takes like 10 or 15 years. So I had never chance to build anything my own. So that's also a chance for me to be an architect, as Leon Krier say that I'm an architect because I never built anything. Let's start with. Okay. So there's a few reasons that I create Hanoi Ad Hoc. So one of my inspiration is from Rem Koolhaas' Elements of Architecture. I had a chance to meet with him in 2018 or 17, I remember. Yeah, it's a long time ago. In a World Architecture Festival, and I expressed my interest to expand his concept or his structure on analysis architecture through the anthropological kind of logics through elements. Architecture is kind of like a composition of different elements. So I expressed the idea of expand that structure to the urban scale, which is the city. So we can see also, and also analyze the city as the composition of different elements. But also, I'm not saying that the city doesn't have layers. The city is a palimpsest of many layers. But also we can see it as a composition of elements. And start from there. And also because during the COVID, I didn't have work. So that's also another reason for me to start a research project. The second reason is there was a huge fire in Hanoi in a factory, a light pulp factory named Dong. And I was thinking like, okay, let's do something, because at that time it was a huge scandal. And I think like, you know, controversy, scandal could be something that make people aware of my projects. So I start with proposing a concept for Dong factory. But the thing is, I couldn't find any data or information about the factory. There's no available data on the factory at all in Vietnam. And then I think, okay, let's do it myself. Let's looking for the data and build a platform, the data platform for myself. And also maybe other people, if they work on the same topic, they can use mine as well. So it could be an open platform. So I start from there and research and work on, different factory, like over 100 of factory during 2 years. And then because we work on the factory, so I think like I still want to expand the boundary of the research. Like, why not we work on housing? Why not waters, nature? Why not urban, public spaces and urban village? So that's why I create kind of a mission or a mandate for Hanoi Ad Hoc, which focus every year on one topic or one urban element. So it's our kind of a social engagement. In terms of structure, we have 3 main acts, which is theorize, which is archive, theorize, and provocation. The first act is archive. Why? Because in Vietnam, normally, you have a lot of research on architecture or urban design, but there's no formal kind of archive. When you try to find something, it's quite difficult. So I want to kind of focus more on this act, and it's also a part of the preservation. As archiving is activities is part of the preservation activities. And the second act is theorize. Theorize, we like, unlike a normal projects that you come from solution, from problems to solution, I prefer to run a little bit slower to get into the middle, which is the analyze part, to focus on one angle and to see how architecture can have the impact on social life and can theorize it in different way. And the third act is provocation. So for this act, I don't want to propose just a solution or kind of the most efficient way to deal with the built environment, but more like an open act with the community engagement, community participatory, where I think the city belongs to everyone, so everybody have the right on it. So we mostly focus on giving the chance to the people to propose their own idea. It doesn't need to be the best, but it could be crazy or utopian, but it should be intriguing and can provoke the debate, public debate. So the first year of Hanoi Ad Hoc, actually 1 year of Hanoi Ad Hoc lasts 2 years. It's quite elastic. We start from the archival activities, researching the historical information about over 100 factories in Hanoi, along and also like the industrial landscape along the modernization of the city. And we also built the kind of a series of interactive maps in which we can see the interaction between the factory and other urban fabric, and based on their location, their type of industry or products, or based on their status, we can actually theorize how the factory or the industrial landscape has impact to the way the city has been shaped. So this also part of the archival activities. So instead of like beyond looking for or collecting information, the existing information or data, we also go to the site and collect ourselves the information and recreate kind of digital model based on point cloud, photogrammetry, and redraw it. Along those activities, we have a kind of public talks and public event where we invite people from different fields and different disciplines to participate in the conversation with a Hanoi ad hoc. And part of the Act 3 provocation, we have also organized an exhibition where we try to raise awareness of the potential use or alternative use of the factory in the urban area. What the second life of the factory after the modernization or industrialization era. And here's the train factory in Zalam, where recently the city has approved to transform it into a kind of, not approved yet, but it will be the first part or the first step of an initiative transforming into a creative hub. So the Festival of Creativity, Design and Creativity in Hanoi in 2023, which happened yesterday, was there. And Hanoi Ad Hoc exhibition was part of it. And I want to use the exhibition as part of the provocation, where I kind of want to experiment a theoretical transitory urbanism, where a kind of a temporary installation or program can be introduced in a brownfield, could take form in a limited time, and then we will see what happens and take a decision whether we keep it or not, or change to other function. And for the design, we kind of want to have certain concept related to the idea of modernization and industrialization. So I kind of interested in the theory of Cheda about the grid. He's the one who coined the term urbanism, right? Before him, it doesn't exist. And he's also a socialist. And for him, the grid is the best kind of morphology to share, and it's a symbol of equality and efficiency, and in terms of transportation, in terms of production and energy, and it relates tightly to the concept of industrialization at that time. And actually, At that time, there wasn't car at all. There's only train. But Trader, he already kind of, he has he foreseen there would be a small engine, smaller engine than the train that could circulate in the city. So that's why in his plan at that time he's designed actually for car, for that engine which is not existed yet. So the grid also is the symbol of your efficient and transportation. Of course, we know I don't want to promote for the idea of city for car. We know that is not a great idea, but at that time it was kind of an avant-garde. And also in his super blog, we can see like there's a chamber corner, which is also facilitate the circulation of car and the sight when you drive. Another influence come from an archaeologist who wrote the book about behavioral archaeology. So he argued that archaeology is actually a discipline where the symbol of this is the fundamental point is to find the relationship between human and the material culture, right? So that means time frame doesn't really matter. It could be on the past, the present, recent past. So if we extend that notion, that means we can also investigate the recent past as as a heritage. So and also the industrial heritage has never been accepted or agreed as a heritage in Vietnam. So I want to kind of recreate an archaeological site there. And also it's based on the morphology of the grid. And yeah, I didn't have time to explain everything because the time is running. So maybe next time in Hanoi, I will show you the real picture, not the rendering, and maybe explain a bit more about the concept. So this year we moved to our research on housing called Dwelling in Floods, which is the title of the talk. But yeah, we run out of time. So I just try to resume that we focus more on the typology of adaptation than the form or the typology of form. So there are three typology of adaptation that we focus, which is form, function, and culture. Form we can see easily in the KTT or the socialist housing. It's everywhere in Hanoi. Function is you can see in in the tube house in the old quarter, how people divide the interior spaces to transform one family house to multiple family houses. It's after independence, the floods of immigration from the rural countryside to Hanoi had pushed the government to that decision of dividing the interior of the house, of the tube house, and also the French villa. So actually, those tube house in the old quarters is the first form of the socialist housing, and people have to adapt. Oh, time's up. Last one is culture. So I will talk more about it. It's a kind of a taboo topic because I want to talk about the Love Hotel, where Love Hotel is kind of, it's not the same concept in Japan, but the Love Hotel in Vietnam is more like an extension of your bedroom when you grow up in the neo-tube house. So anyway, maybe in the next talk we want to talk about it. So this is the first workshop on the KT that we collaborate with the museum in Berlin and Goethe Institute last month. So yeah, I will keep you posted for the next activity. Thank you for listening.
Hey, so thanks, Trung. That was amazing. It was so. You started off by saying you're an amateur researcher, but I don't think that's true. I think that's definitely not amateur research. That's amazing research, and it's definitely when you start to look at the diagrams that you're using to communicate your ideas. They're so rich in information. They're beautiful. Like absolutely beautiful. So I love that you're pairing it with this notion of archive and putting that together and doing all these projects, you know, and having this timeline of all this stuff that you want to do. I'm so excited to see everything unfold. So yeah, amazing. All right, so these guys are putting some chairs up. So for you guys, 7 chairs, I think, because we've got double. And we're going to start with some questions. So please welcome to the stage our Now, this is the audience's turn to start to think about some questions to ask because we want to make you guys part of this dialogue as much as we are. So, who's thinking of a question that you would like to ask? Don't be shy. Who's going to ask a question? Michelle?
Yeah, my question's a little bit strange, but I've been looking at all the wonderful, and probably it was more for the morning session, we were looking at the welcoming nature and things like that into the built environments. And I was just wondering about in terms of the comfort level, because we're looking at letting air flow freely, AC and so on. But it's looking at the aspect of can we build a future, like we have things like the dengue issue, and so I'm just wondering about how we can make our buildings comfortable while still bringing these kinds of traditional practices and more environmentally aware practices, but being very pragmatic as well. So if anyone can speak to that.
I guess what we have heard this morning was still valid in the proposition that we showcased. In most of our building, of course, we try to go with the natural ventilation scenario. For most of our clients, we try to propose. There was I think it was Kerry was saying that at least you need to give the options, and actually luxury is options. But it was in a context of let's say resort or luxury hotel. But the idea of the having option is quite interesting, and I would say one of the challenge we got is especially the Jacob factory, where we have a lot of plants. It's quite let's say advanced and prototyping factory where the main hall are cross ventilate and with the problems of as I said the some of days during the years the rain. And the other one, which was quite funny, it's maybe not the dinga, but is the Tet. During Tet holiday, we need to close the factory, but it's not closable actually, because it's fully open. So it was all these questions that comes with the open scenario, and that's true that dengue or others. Things that potentially years ago we were not looking at. I mean, the maybe 50 years or 100 years ago they were not like aware of that. We have to face it, and that's true that there is a little bit technicality that maybe I haven't shown it in a Jacob factory, where we have some kind of implementation of mechanical system, maybe not for ventilation, not for cooling, but for other purposes actually. So that's true that you need to look at the range of the problems when it comes to a very natural seating or less mechanical seating. The FPT software villages are a little bit different in the way that is purely the circulation and the public space which are cross-ventilate and open. The office itself is totally enclosed and aircon space, but without direct sun. So there is never ever a sun that hitting a windows directly. So it's about of course thickness of the facade and how to create that passive design of shading, which is basically become very, very difficult in Vietnam because of the GFA problems, and anything you do except if it's louver, very light, become GFA, covering, all these kind of things that we have. Most of our regulation is guided by how to frame the GFA, but not the quality of the buildings. So it's become quite a headache on that. And regulation comes closer to actually to frame the developers and not to give chance to architecture to express or to answer to the real questions.
Good. Okay. Great.
Hi. I have a question for Trong. Is that your name? Sorry. Yeah. Trúc. Hanoi ad hoc. Okay. I want to ask about because you deal with basically renovating these industrial projects, right? Which is very kind of on the same wavelength is what my talk this morning is about. But you're dealing with a particular type of projects, which is industrial projects. I had an opportunity to visit a place in, was it in the Delta with all the brick kilns, what is it? I forget. In Long Hai, we had in the old days, there were a lot of these brick factory, right? So currently, it's going to be abandoned by law because of the pollution problem. So we're dealing with this potential client who wants to try to find out, somehow a way to reuse them, right? So, but dealing with industrial projects that produce a lot of these pollution, can you give me kind of your input on how do you deal with like bringing these into real projects with real clients, and how to make it commercially, how to make them commercially viable, because it's easy to turn a factory into the Tate Museum because the Tate has a lot of money to pay to do that. But to be able to commercialize in a country like Vietnam where there are a lot of money, there are a lot of money being poured into the big commercial projects, but to revitalize these factories at a large scale, dealing with pollution problem, dealing with zoning problem, all of that. Can you enlighten us with your practical knowledge?
Thank you, Anh Hoành, for the questions. I don't have that much experience, but based on what I have with talking and working with the train factory in Hanoi. So we have a lot of meeting with the railway corporation, with the train factory, with the city cultural development department. So one of the key in the conversation or in the dialogue between the stakeholder is the balance. we have to keep the balance between cultural development and economical development, right? It's too easy, like a country like Vietnam, of course, we are not at the stage of putting ahead cultural activities instead of economic one, right? In Europe, in France, Germany, England, there's a lot of industrial side brownfield has been transformed into cultural hub, artistic, hub, or creative industries. There is kind of a standard. Like that's the first thing they talk about when thinking about transforming or regenerate or repurposing the industrial side. But in the country like Vietnam, the pace of economic development doesn't cope with the pace of cultural development. So I could say that it's quite utopian to keep convincing people to transform 100% of the site into a cultural program or activities. We have the example of Zone 9 in Hanoi. It has been transformed like completely to the creative hub, artistic practice there, but it doesn't work because it doesn't generate enough income according to their prime location. So that's one. Of course, there's other political concern, but I think in economical point of view, it doesn't work. So in our discussion with the stakeholders for the future of the train factory in Gia Lâm, the main concern is how to keep the balance. We have to build housing there. Of course, we need to have housing development. Nothing generates more money than building housing, right? So, but if we could keep like certain percent of the existing structure as a kind of strategic kind of selling kind of point, that could generate actually more money to the investor. Like if we have like partly housing, partly cultural programs, partly entertainment programs, greenery, public spaces, keep the balance. That could work. And actually, my exhibition would be permanent there. So yeah, and that would be the first step to kind of the first seed that we put on the ground and see how it works. And maybe next year, we have to do the test, right? After the festival, like there's a lot of journalists come to ask me like after the festival, what gonna happen with that site? What gonna happen with those structure that we build there? Because the most problematic things in every architectural festival or exhibition, even including the universal exhibition or the Olympic Games is we don't have any program for the aftermath of the event. Architectural function and program should go with a very insightful and detailed programs of how it works later. So my exhibition or Hanoi Ad Hoc 1.0 exhibition would be maybe transformed into something else after that. It could be the exhibition of, I don't know, Saigon Ad Hoc, I don't know, maybe. But there would be another life for that structure. And we will see in 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years whether that program works or not, and whether it generates income and works for people, for local community, what value it brings to the community. And then we will see, this is a long-term project, so I cannot say more than what I have at the moment. But yeah, I'm also very interested in Mang Thiết, a kind of brick factory there. There's a lot of potential to do things, but I don't know what's going on now. I have a friend who worked many years on that project, but maybe I should ask him more about it and get back to you. Yeah, thank you.
Another question?
Yeah. First of all, I really appreciate how can we preserve the heritage to improve our society, but in a context where the sustainability is put on top, and Vietnam is, as you know, as a third world, and the sustainability something about like that are not put on top in this country, because when as an architecture student in Vietnamese German University, when talk about the sustainability is not put at the suitable point to talk about it, in the developed country, and my confusing point is that how the problem we can solve, because to build the sustainable society, it's not just about the preserve the heritage, but it's the math problem about how can we balance between the economic status and cultural and more like that. And that just might confuse how can we balance it and the math that we can solve to attain the sustainable society. Yeah. Because it's a general question, so I don't know who to ask.
Okay.
That's an interesting question. I mean, I don't have a great deal to say to it because I'm a foreigner, so it is something perhaps Vietnamese people need to resolve themselves. But I would always cite the fact that the government a couple of years ago talked about the fact that Vietnam needs to convert from a manufacturing basis to a creative economy. And so I think creativity has a huge importance in terms of sustainability. And I think ecologically, we don't really have too much choice in the matter anymore. We can't, this idea that we can carry on like we do is just nuts, you know. I mean, we can see more and more cars on the streets as the Western nations are dumping their petrol and diesel cars into developing nations before they all have to switch to battery. Yeah, I think we don't really have too many choices in it. I think sustainability and being much more conscious of our ecological footprint is going to impact on everything from architecture through to, everything. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure whether I can add on to that or whether Khan wants to add, but I think the interesting point that you make and how I always see it when I look at architecture and sustainability is that, and it's actually something that Dr. Kang brought up as well, is that when looking at vernacular Vietnamese architecture, it's not like you don't have to look too far to find some very, very local solutions to some very, very big sustainable problems. And it's already happening, it's already coming in because it's right. What other alternate approach is there? And if it isn't happening, it will be happening. And just by looking at, if you did a cross-evaluation of all presentations today, I would have said about 80% of them touched on some form of sustainability in some way, shape or form. And whether that was theoretically, practically or visually, it's starting to come through within all dialogues. So I think that it's, and the other thing that I'll say, and this is from a pedagogical perspective, is that you are young. and you're Vietnamese and you're going to make a difference and you're going to make a change as an architect. And education systems can only teach you so much, and you have to go beyond that and go be hungry for it and be curious for it and go, where else can I find out? What else can I do? You know, you take ownership of your own trajectory of who you are and who you want to be as an architect. And the second that you step out of that, of what they teach me and what can I teach myself, that's when you start to really become like, you know, step into the sunshine and to have much more potential. So, and I would step into the sunshine and then look at vernacular architecture. It is so, it is loaded with sustainable design principles in Vietnam. Bring it back. You want to talk, Beno?
Yeah, maybe just one thing, because we were talking when we haven't lunch, actually. We're supposed to have lunch, we don't have lunch, but we talk about something interesting, about also the roles and the position of the architect. A lot of carbon emission is produced by construction. It's huge, actually. Of course, cars is another one. And actually, unfortunately, if I look at what happened in Vietnam these last 20 years, 98%, let's say, to be optimistic, of what is built is not built by architect here in this country. It's everywhere, don't worry, it's everywhere, but 98 is quite high, actually. And especially the large projects, there's not so much architect, and especially Vietnamese architect, involved. Even other foreign architects as well. So big corporate or in-house design have been made for so long in this country, and without having any idea except to optimize the GFA. So that's something that you need as a young architect or new architect, to be aware that you need to regain land. You need to regain a position in here. And how to do it is about also to see all the margin that you have. The margins are very small. Huh? I will say that there is a lot of need of affordable housing. That is one, which is huge actually in Vietnam. That I think you need any of the school in this country should start to work on that topics. It's super nice to do a cafe. It's super nice to do a private house. I love it as well. But somehow this is not the future of Vietnam. With the million of public housing or social housing that need to be developed now, I mean, or to gain on the large developers and to be able to implement some of the strategy that we're discussing at the large scale, that will make the change. But that for sure you need to tackle to this big people, big group, to find a way to implement this small, that one, and try to find the right holes to go through. It's not easy. Visual is a lot, narrative is a lot, but also a true passive strategy or strategy that will make also a gain of money for them. So you need to be quite, to find the tricks to be back on business, because now we are just talking on the side, and that's not good. We are talking at the side of the problem because we're just talking about, small. I mean, we need to start from small, no questions, but we need to target big to save the country. Yeah?
Oh, yes. Because when talk about a sustainable, something like that, there are many ways to face that situations. Like ones will try to tackle it at the real way, like how to attain the sustainable status, and one will accept it and do their best job at just that as status. But I recognize that because of the Vietnam is like I just as a student perspective, I realized like because due to the sustainable status when it raising rapidly, and because of that, there are many cases that sustainable status is not understood as the like it's true quality, but someone will utilize it to like for, I don't know, for like just marketing strategy, and it's misunderstood. And yeah, I understand that this is the problem that we have to accept. But I just confused, like, it is just the must-have situations to attain the real sustainable society, or can we do more than that, or can we do differently? Yes, that's just as a student perspective. Yeah.
Cô cảm ơn bạn đã có một câu hỏi đến cuối nhưng mà lại rất là sâu. Thì nãy giờ cũng có nhiều các anh chị trả lời bằng tiếng Anh, nhưng bây giờ cô muốn trả lời bằng tiếng Việt riêng với cháu. Thật ra thì cô làm việc với các cộng đồng nghèo từ khi cô cũng vừa mới ra trường đại học. Và trong suốt cái 35 năm làm việc với người nghèo, cô đã làm việc với rất nhiều với các tổ chức UN, các tổ chức Liên Hiệp Quốc, tổ chức chuyên về định cư nhà ở của người nghèo, của con người. Thì nãy hình như trong một bài phát biểu có nói về một cái gọi là SDG 11, tức là Sustainable Development Goal 11. Đó, và nói đặc biệt về cái Sustainability City. Thì cô nghĩ bản thân cái công việc của cô và những người làm việc chung với cô đều rất coi thường cái khẩu hiệu này. Và thật ra thì cháu nói đúng, tức là các cái gọi là cái motto của mình, những cái khẩu hiệu của mình đang hô hào về nhân văn, về công bằng xã hội, về văn minh, về bền vững của chúng ta đều đáng bị coi lại hết. Thế thì bây giờ cái vấn đề ở chỗ là với một cái tư cách là một người đang còn ngồi trên ghế nhà trường, một cái kiến trúc sư trẻ đang còn là thời sinh viên thôi, bây giờ thì mình tin vào đâu bây giờ? Nếu như mình nói rằng tất cả đều phủ nhận hết như thế. Thế thì theo cô nghĩ thì chỉ có một điều, đó là cái bền vững. Cháu nên tin vào cái luật nhân quả. Cháu tin vào cái luật nhân quả, nghĩa là hôm nay cá nhân cháu làm một cái điều gì đó với cái tư cách là kiến trúc sư. Như vậy thì cái điều cháu làm đó nó sẽ để lại cho cái thế hệ tương lai như thế nào. Đấy là cái quả. Và cái nhân và cái quả đó là có thật. Nó không chỉ ở trong truyền thống nhưng mà chắc chắn nó là ở trong tâm linh của mỗi người. Như vậy, vì vậy nên cô nghĩ rằng là khi mình nói một cái từ nào hoặc là mình làm một cái gì đó thì mình dùng nhiều cái lăng chiếu để mình có thể mình xem xét. Và tất nhiên cái điều cháu tin hay không tin đều có quyền hết. Cứ đi, cứ làm và xem xét. Cũng như cảm ơn cái anh bạn ngồi phía ngoài cũng có nói về cái chuyện rằng là với tư cách là một kiến trúc sư thì cháu nên suy nghĩ rằng là hiện nay á, các kiến trúc sư đều đang phục vụ cho người giàu. Đa phần là đang phục vụ cho người giàu. Như vậy kiến trúc sư phục vụ cho người nghèo như thế nào? Cô không thể trả lời cho cháu được. Cháu phải tự đi tìm hiểu. Trong công việc của mình bắt đầu làm việc với người nghèo, mình đã bắt đầu làm việc với các cộng đồng thì mình mới biết cách làm thế nào. Và chính họ sẽ trả lời. Đấy, bản thân cô thì cô trả lời như vậy. Ha. Cô tên là Châu. Cô làm việc cho cái nó gọi là tiếng Anh nó gọi là Asian Coalition for Housing Rights. Thế nhưng mà cô vẫn thường nói là cô làm việc cho cộng đồng, những người mà tin vào cộng đồng, tin vào con người và làm việc với cộng đồng nghèo ở châu Á. Thì cái này nó có cái headquarter của nó ở Bangkok. Thế nhưng mà hiện giờ đã chuyển sang Nepal rồi. Và trong cái mạng lưới đó nó có sinh ra rất nhiều các bạn kiến trúc sư và gọi thành một cái tên là Community Architect Network in Asia. là can. Các bạn có thể search ở trên Google, có đó. Cô là kiến trúc sư à? Không, cô không là kiến trúc sư. Cô học Đại học Kinh tế và sau đó thì cô có làm cái thạc sĩ về cái master về cái City and Regional Planning.
I guess I have a questions. I'm Ace in lectures at RMIT. I would like to ask Hoa from Laita and maybe Sanuki's and Andy and Becky's on this. Just generally, it seems to be the themes of what everyone is talking about is like kind of fighting or seeing some of these sort of like part of like heritage of Vietnam or heritage of the cities, even from the smallest thing to the biggest things, applying to product designs and both and architecture as well, and sometimes even larger into urban designs. So from Hoa, for example, looking at smaller moments or things happenings in smaller sort of like events within the cities or within the context of everything that happened within the cities through products. How do you, and then maybe Sanuki's, how you like designing houses that can like situated in like small areas like the Hems and how like fits into different categories of like different districts and kind of finds beauty within just like the existing environment of the city. How do you see, so like, do you see you or your practice are trying to leave or looking to leave like a somewhat of a critical imprint of heritage in the cities, and how would you see that progress or leave like a heritage for the futures to kind of like progress? Sorry, it's just a bit loaded questions.
Alo. Chắc cho Hòa xin trả lời tiếng Việt luôn đi ha. Cho nó dễ. Hòa đã là từng sau khi ra trường vào năm 2010 á, thì Hòa rất là yêu quý về cái nền văn hóa của Việt Nam, cũng như là tại vì Hòa vào trong Sài Gòn từ lúc 5 tuổi, cho nên là Hòa rất là tò mò về cái miền quê của mình sau một khoảng thời gian dài nó như thế nào. Và Hòa gặp rất là nhiều những cái văn hóa của miền Bắc, và trong miền Nam này Hòa rất là thích cái nền văn hóa ở trong này, và Hòa luôn luôn suy nghĩ đến chuyện là làm sao để có thể làm được nó. Tuy nhiên là sau khi mà, tại vì chúng ta không thể nào làm một cái thứ nào tốt khi mà trái tim của chúng ta quá nóng được. Khi mà chúng ta quá ham muốn và chúng ta quá tham vọng muốn chuyển hóa một cái điều gì đó, giống như là một cái thứ di sản thành một cái thứ ở trong tương lai mà người ta dùng á, thì Hòa cảm thấy cái đó nó không tốt, mà nó nên là có một cái sự tỉnh táo. Và Hòa cảm thấy rằng là mình chưa có đủ sức, chưa có đủ phương pháp, chưa có đủ tư duy, chưa có đủ kỹ năng để làm nó. Tốt nhất là mình không nên làm. Và Hòa cố gắng là Hòa lập ra một cái cơ sở riêng để mà mình có thể làm đi làm lại, làm đi làm lại. Hòa cố gắng làm nó và cố gắng làm cho nó là tốt hơn. Và cứ cái chuyện đó cứ lặp đi lặp lại, lặp đi lặp lại. Thì sau những cái quá trình như vậy á, thì Hòa mới tìm ra được và bắt đầu là những cái chuyển hóa của mình nó trở nên nó tự nhiên hơn rất là nhiều. Nó làm sao? Tại vì Hòa nghĩ rằng là bản thân dù muốn dù không thì tất cả những cái tiếp cận của Hòa nó đều, tại vì đối với Hòa thiết kế nó sinh ra từ bối cảnh, và sau đó nó phải nên quay trở lại để nó phục vụ bối cảnh đó. Cho nên là bản thân Hòa được sinh ra lớn lên hoàn toàn ở Việt Nam và làm tất cả những công việc ở Việt Nam. Thì Hòa nghĩ rằng là bản thân văn phòng của Hòa, những cái thứ của Hòa làm nó đều sinh ra từ những cái quan sát và những cái trắc ẩn đó. Cho nên là thực ra cái mấu chốt vấn đề ở đây là làm sao để cho mình có, tại vì đối với Hòa thì ai cũng có một cái mong muốn làm một cái điều gì đó có ích cho xã hội và cố gắng cải tiến và lưu giữ lại một điều gì đó. Nhưng cái cách của chúng ta làm nó quan trọng hơn rất là nhiều. Và làm sao cái cách đó chúng ta phải đi cải tiến cái cách làm của mình để càng ngày nó càng tốt hơn. Bởi vậy là bản thân văn phòng Hòa tên là Laita là vậy. Laita có nghĩa không phải là Lai Tây, mà bản thân Laita đã phải có cái Tây ở trong đó rồi. Thì cái Tây đó chính là cái phương pháp. Hòa cảm thấy một người học hoàn toàn ở Việt Nam như Hòa rất là yếu về phương pháp. Và đối với Hòa mong muốn là cái phương pháp, cái cách tiếp cận của chúng ta và cái thứ mà chúng ta quan sát được và chúng ta có thể đóng góp được cái gì đó để mà thay thế được một cái mô hình đã cũ, cái điều đó nó quan trọng hơn rất là nhiều. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, can you explain again about your question? Question again, sorry. What do you?
I think it's about how your practice can make impact. I think so.
Maybe you could speak about designing in and within and for certain areas where it's super condensed, but the projects that you do relate to the context, they relate to your observations, your being there, and also the tight constrictions of that you're faced with in designing for those spaces, but somehow you manage to just create these beautiful spaces.
I'd say that actually I'm working in Vietnam from 1999, around 24 years already. When I was working in a Japanese university as an assistant professor, and I joined about one project in Hanoi, so that I was working in so long time and to relate to the Vietnamese and the cities, and I always to watch and observe about the city, like a context, what is important, because I'm working in not only Vietnam, another country as well, Cambodia or some Bangladesh or something, and I'm foreigner in the scope of foreigners eye. I feel that about this country, this city's designs become a bit boring. I have already said in my slide, it could be like a very normal and not so much unique. What is about we should to keep it, what we have to preserve the current culture, and like I said, I'll say Vietnam is like a good and special point. It's quite important, and this I say, it's my I say I have to do because I'm Japanese, I'm foreigner. My scope of why I have to mention about what is important. Maybe that some of Vietnamese cannot to find it, cannot say to awake about what is important. But maybe it's a way my job to try to find about what is important, what is the interesting point, compared with another country. Because in Japan also we have also developed period from the 1960 to 1980, around 20 years, very very developing, the quick developing a period. At that time we lost a lot of things. We know to copy everything, and developing it quite high speed. And it's very terrible, no consideration. And the instant city, they make a lot, And we have to try to think what is important. We always to try to think. Sorry, it's so long. And I want to say that about around these 20 years, I work in here, and I always to try to watch and discover what is important. And especially about I'm thinking about I'm architect, but my point is about not only physical space design, but also how to create about space a condition and situation can be I say that flexible or changeable. We can accept it about diverse of the space. It's also quite an important topic so that I think in Vietnam has very strong a culture to use about an interesting way of the usage of the space. This is a point of I'm thinking, So that I want to try to use about this way of the thinking of the space, or a culture of the use of the space. It's to try to create about some a specific design for a Vietnamese design, Vietnamese architecture. Is it okay? Yeah.
Yeah, I have the question for my beautiful lady about mixed pattern. Yeah. You mentioned the 2 or 3, different patterns that in each project we need to somehow integrate to each other. So according to your experience in several projects in Vietnam, which patterns is that currently dominant?
Usually it's a matter of priorities. So it really depends also on the background of the client you are dealing with and the constraints of the site. So it's very different if we are approaching an architectural project or a urban design project or an interior design project, because of course it's not just a matter of scale, but the constraints usually are very different. As a matter of fact, the financial constraints usually are the leading one, and as well as the preparation and understanding of the clients about what is really needed for a project, especially in urban design and architecture. So, as he mentioned, there are some cultural aspects that, from our point of view, are dominant. And sometimes for the client, it's just a matter of numbers. So I would say that usually it's between the scientific aspects that we have to deal with mostly.
Yeah, because I remember the three power that transform our societies or anything physical as the political, knowledge, and economics. And because we are experts, we are professional, we more deal with technical aspects or patterns.
Yeah.
But however, in reality, we work with clients, we work with financial budgets. So we have sometimes, we cannot balance the three power at the same time. So come back to the question from the student. We don't need to balance all the time. We can sacrifice something, to achieve something. With with all your, heart or love or responsibilities for the next generation. So, for example, we are doing a project on Saigon River to consult the city government for the master readjustment project. Our desire to reserve the natural system. Mũi đèn đỏ, 120 hectares with reserved natures, biodiversity. But one of the company, Vạn Thịnh Phát, want to develop, a big complex. And this is a prototype of high-end, luxury villas and high-rise apartments. And it's scattered all the island or the place. That prototype could reduce or destroy or damage the biodiversity of the area, because you cannot bring the ecosystem within, the central lake with lots of artificial flashlights, human activities and so on. So we convince the government to reserve 100 or at least 90% of that land, for the reserve, and with a more compact, high, taller, compact area for development. So I think it's the whole story about negotiation between the investor for the win-win, solution. So I think I agree with one of the ideas. Once we don't know what to do, we don't do anything. Đà Lạt still have a golf course because, it was a golf course. If it's not, it's now full of buildings already. So if we have Thanh Đa still a farmhouse, a farmland because it's hanging planning. So I hope that, we have more hanging planning so that, we have more vacant land for the next generation to redevelop. That's my point of view, we don't have enough money. We don't have much capacity, even knowledge, to do things. Just leave it for the next generation. And the way that we collect data, to reserve it is a very good way. Heritage conservation doesn't necessarily to protect the building. We can, archaeologists, they dig down, to see things. We keep things in books, films, and videos. The next generation, they can see it. So it's a different forms of heritage that I think, we raise today that is out of physicals. Artificial, but it's more cultural, mental, and with the new application of the high technology, that ad hoc. I love your project a lot. Yeah. Yep. So yeah.
Cháu nghĩ là cháu có thể kiến giải một chút xíu về cái cách mà bạn này đặt vấn đề về bền vững. Tại vì ở dưới góc độ là một người đang khám phá về thiết kế sản phẩm, nó có một cái là xung quanh của chúng ta có rất nhiều sản phẩm rác. Không phải là nó không đẹp, rác đẹp nữa là khác. Nhưng mà cái vấn đề ở đây có nghĩa là làm sao? Cái là xung quanh của chúng ta có quá nhiều sản phẩm khiếm khuyết. Có nghĩa rằng là nó phải cần có hình thức, nó phải cần có bền vững, nó phải cần có giá cả, nó phải cần có một cái cách tiếp cận hữu dụng, thẩm mỹ, tất cả. Nhưng mà cái sự cạnh tranh không đáng có. Có quá nhiều người muốn đề xuất một cái sản phẩm và nó làm cho người ta phải cắt bớt đi. Tức là nó bớt bền đi. Nó để cho nó rẻ hơn. Xong rồi nó loè loẹt hơn để mà nó kích thích thị giác người ta. Vô hình chung nó làm cho những cái sản phẩm đó nó trở thành một sản phẩm khiếm khuyết. Có nghĩa là cái sản phẩm đó nó không được tiếp cận một cách đầy đủ. Thì nói rộng ra ở các công trình kiến trúc hay là các dự án nó cũng gần giống như vậy. Có nghĩa là giống như vừa rồi Trung nói là chúng ta phải cần có một cái sự cân bằng của tất cả những yếu tố. Ở đây nó sẽ rất là khó, nghĩa là mình phải giữ làm sao được cái sự cân bằng đó. Tại vì nó rất dễ chúng ta đề xuất một cái đề xuất nó rác, nó khiếm khuyết. Phải cố gắng giữ cái sự toàn vẹn của một cái đối tượng, một cái vật thể. Nó không thể nào nó chỉ là một vật thể rẻ, chỉ là một vật thể dùng một lần, hay chỉ là một vật thể cố gắng muốn kêu gào sự chú ý của mọi người. Mà nó phải cần có một sự bình tĩnh. Thì con nghĩ rằng là một cái tiếp cận bình tĩnh, một cái tiếp cận toàn vẹn, nó là một cái tiếp cận bền vững. Dạ, con cảm ơn.
Okay, so we'd just like to say thank you very much. We could keep on talking, but we're being told that we have to cut it off. So we just wanted to offer these small gifts as a thank you. And then I'm just going to hand over the mic afterwards to Dr. Catherine Earle, who's just going to do a closing. Yes? Yeah. Okay. I hand, and then I hand the mic to...
No worries.
You're going to add them to your RMIT collection. Okay, I think we should thank our panel. Thank you. Okay, you want me to talk now? All right, so I'm conscious we're at the end of quite a long day, and thank you to everyone who stayed with us for the whole day. I actually want to make 3 points, and I will be brief. So I've heard a lot of talk of individual today, like individual sensory experience. And I think we can balance it with policy so that we think about, say, regulation and how we manage the top-down with the bottom-up through the sensory. Then I think we move past the individual to the community and kinship on the one hand, and maybe digital transformation on the other hand. And sorry, Andy, I'm going to say smart city. I think this idea of smart, like we talk about digital transformation and a smart city. Maybe we assume this means high-rise towers and all that concrete and steel. Does it need to? Like the digital part of it, yes, it can make our life easier. On the other hand, for smart, we have an idea of intelligent, like clear thinking and common sense and being clever about how we live. And we've heard so many examples of vernacular solutions, of sustainability and bottom-up. So can this be a kind of smart city where we look at a different way of integrating digitization to common sense ways of living that we know work? Thirdly, I want to reflect back on our very first presentation about nature and the city, which maybe is often presented as a binary, like an opposition of the city or nature, when clearly we could see in the designs that nature was in the design
and that the building was invisible, so that we can live in what appears to be a natural world in the middle of the city. And I want to end on that point and leave that idea in your head. So with that, I'm going to close today's session and thank all of our speakers and all of our audience for a wonderful day about spatial mapping, and hope that we can move forward with more conversations and more collaborations in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, and that's it.